I am so excited for this episode of the Teacher Biz podcast because I get to bring you one of my Teacher Biz Blueprint students. And she is a student that I am very, very proud of. I can't wait for you to hear Kendra's story. Pay special attention to the part where she struggled for a second and then pushed through that to get to where she is now. And I also want you to hear that Kendra was a chemistry teacher. Some people have this misconception that because I was a kindergarten teacher, this only works for kindergarten teachers, or because I help preschool families, that is the only way that this business model works. I love Kendra's story because it proves that that is not true. Any teacher, anyone with something to teach can be successful using these strategies. And I'm just so excited for you to hear where she started and where she is right now. Kindra, welcome to the Teacher Biz podcast.
Thanks, Heather. I'm really excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. Let's start by having you share where you were before you started your online business, maybe a little bit about your teaching background and why you were interested in starting an online business.
Yeah, so I was a chemistry teacher for 9 years, and I taught all levels of high school chemistry. Plus, I had multiple roles in teacher leader capacity and various leadership teams. And I did a lot of school-wide and district-wide professional development. So I got to help in that aspect. And I really developed a passion for digging into what we teach, why and how do we best measure if our students have learned it, and then what do we do if they don't? So what content and skills are we focus on, and then those pedagogical practices best used to help students accomplish those curriculum goals. And luckily for me, my administration team was really supportive and amazing and gave me the green light to dive headfirst into standards-based grading, which led to me spearheading a school-wide professional development and then implementation of standards-based grading, or as I'd rather call it, skills-based grading, because standards makes everything messy. And I got to lead that at the high school where I taught. And as I was going through all of that, I was encouraged to earn my master's in educational leadership, along with my principal license and director of curriculum and instruction license. And fast forward through a lot of grad school, but I moved into administration and took on an assistant principal / athletic director role in a 612 middle school, high school, which was local to where I lived. And I was really excited and ready to widen my sphere of influence and have a greater impact on my students' learning. And I looked forward to spending my days in teachers' classrooms and getting to share my passions for curriculum and instruction. But as you can imagine, that is not what happened. And also, home life, I had a husband and a 1-year-old daughter at the time, and I was hardly getting to see them due to my expected 24/7 nature of being an administrator. And we recently had a large shift in leadership in my school district that really didn't love the fact that I had a family, much less a baby at home. And I just knew that there had to be a different and better way to make the large impact that I wanted to have, and one that could afford me the time I really wanted to have with my daughter and my family. So I left the brick and mortar knowing that there had to be a better work-life balance out there, but I wasn't sure exactly what that all entailed. And I left without a clear path, but knew just like there has to be something. So I started online searching for jobs for teachers. And thanks to the Facebook gods and algorithm, I saw one of your ads, and I said, well, let's take on this challenge. And I thought, well, if she can do it, and especially as a mom, which was really important to like where I was in life at that time and still am, thought like, why can't I? And so that's where I was when I found you, and life has changed dramatically in the last year since then.
I love that so much. I didn't know all of those details of Kendra's story, and that makes so much sense. You're right. It's very hard once you have children and a family to try to balance both things when your schedule is not your own. And that just makes me so happy that you did find me, and that Facebook knew to show me in your feed so that you could find me in that way. Um, because I know where your story goes from there. So were you brand new to online business at that time?
Kind of. I had gone ahead and done a little crafting LLC during the pandemic because I enjoy crafting, and that was prior to baby. And but I ran it all on Etsy, and so my customers really weren't my own. And once they had tried it, they didn't really come back, and so that had fizzled out. Um, so I really hadn't had much experience in the online world besides that, and I knew about Teachers Pay Teachers, but that also seemed really daunting and kind of like Etsy, and I didn't have the experience I wanted to. So I was really new to everything and that you were teaching and the strategies that you were teaching. So I was a total beginner. 1 year ago today, I didn't know how Facebook ads worked. I didn't know about email lists, or I never listened to a marketing podcast. And oh, have things changed?
I'm so excited for listeners to hear the next part of this story. So you found me on Facebook and you joined last year's Plan Your Teacher Biz Challenge, right? Which is, as listeners are listening to this, that challenge is just wrapping up. And then you decided to continue working with me in my signature course, Teacher Biz Blueprint, which, by the way, listeners, is open right now. But what happened after you made that choice, Kendra?
Well, after I decided, it was almost a year ago that I had the conversation with my husband and said, um, I'll pull up the message. This is about what it said. It said, first, I referred to you as Heather, as if we'd been bestie coworkers for years. And he was like, who's Heather? And I was like, well, the person that I've been doing this challenge with. Like, she's a mom, she's a business owner, she gets it. Like, I really want to learn
I
from
love
her. And I said, well, she has this 12-week course, weekly coaching calls, and accountability. And I think this would work. And he goes, well, what's your ROI? Right? We're like learning these marketing terms. And I said, well, she's going to actually push me to get my dream of a business off the ground. I'm going to have a mentor who's in the similar life stages of me, who has successfully done it, willing to mentor me. And we're either going to find out that, yes, this is going to work and I can do this as the mom that I want to be and have a business, or nope, we're going to find out it's time to move in a different direction. But if I don't take this opportunity now, when like life is what's next, like we're never going to know. So he said, all right, let's do it. And I'm glad it was a team effort, because I think something to notice is like, this is really a team, even though I'm the one doing the business, like without support from family, it's would be really difficult. And then once I started working with you, Heather, like my confidence in myself that I can actually make this happen and create the impact that I want to on students and on teachers while having the freedom to be home with my daughter and just so much more present in my life outside of work, like has gone up tremendously. And I always knew I wanted to have that larger reach. And I remember back in 2018, I went to a conference on backwards design, and I thought to myself, I want to be that facilitator one day. Like, how amazing would it be to have this room full of educators saying, like, what's next? Share with us what you know. And, I always thought up until that point that the way to get there was to go through the brick and mortar building of moving up from teacher to administrator to director. And you taught me that I'm in charge of my own path, and that there's other ways to do it, and that I have the capacity to take action now, and that action can be imperfect because I'm a perfectionist. And so that has just been like liberating, that I can just try stuff and get it out there, and that I can do it, and I can do it as a mom and be the mom I want to be while still having an impact in education.
I'm so proud of you. I can't even tell you. Kendra's such a star student. She is repeating the things that I've been trying to hit home, like take the imperfect action. And I have to scream that at people for them to listen to me. And you are just you followed all of the things that I said, and you've done it so well. I'm just so proud of you. Okay, and we're not even there yet. We didn't even get to the end of this yet. But already I am so proud of you. So you took the leap. I love that you have the support from your husband and your family. I think you articulated really well. And I think that was powerful for you to share the message that you actually sent to him. Um, because sometimes sometimes even with my husband, I could be a little wishy-washy, like, I want to do this thing. I don't know. What do you think? But instead, you were like, here is our choices, and you clearly laid it out. And I think that makes it easier for someone else to say yes and support. And I'm really glad that you had that support. I'm sure he's feeling good about that decision these days. Okay, Kendra, you had so many different skill sets, so many different paths that you could have taken. Can you tell us how you narrowed down what you wanted your business to be about and who you wanted to help, how you came to that decision? And while we're there, tell us what your business name is and who you help, because I don't even think we got there yet.
Yeah, it took some time to think, and I just really started to think about what was I most excited about when I was at school or thinking about school or getting ready for school. And for me, I really loved diving into and researching and learning about like how do we know what kids know? How do we teach them? How do we check if they've learned it? What do we do if they didn't? And I found every time I would sign up for something, it was in that realm. But I knew that like the general, like looking at instruction from the, 30,000-foot view of an entire school was broader than I wanted to be. And as somebody who has a degree in chemistry and that is my passion, I really wanted to hone in on chemistry specific because there's not many of us. And some people that get thrown into teaching chemistry didn't want to be there to begin with. I always joked that, they'd be like, "Oh, do you want to teach biology?" And I was like, "No, I got a chemistry degree for a reason. I want to teach chemistry." And not everybody has that opportunity to be able to say, like, "No, I don't want to teach whatever other science subject." And so I wanted to be able to give to teachers who got thrown into it the resources that I've learned and created. And so that's what drove me into like, okay, we're going to focus on high school chemistry. I'm going to focus on curriculum and how can I give back to teachers that you are just starting out or are trying to figure out like how to do this better. And I really think teachers just have too much on their plates and they have all of the have to do's like planning and grading end up taking over the want to do's like shifts in instructional practices and grading practices and strategies to get all their learners to fully understand and gain confidence and success. And so the last year, while I was actually pregnant, I really focused on how do I change my teaching and my practices so I didn't have to take things home because I needed a better work-life balance. And prior to that, I would take grading and planning home almost every night. In my earlier years, more weekends than not, I would have a milk crate that I would fill with papers to grade that I would bring home. And I'd have labs and classworks and assessments. And I mean, most teachers listening, you can either think back to, oh, that's my plans for this weekend, or like, this is what life was like when I started. And it's not sustainable. And I never had a textbook or a curriculum handed to me to teach from. And so I had to create everything from scratch. And I did that based off the national NGSS or Next Generation Science Standards. And I would keep modifying it year to year to reach more and more students and all the different range of kids that I would teach. So I had at-risk kids, I had physical science, I had chemistry, I had honors, academic, AP. Like I've taught all levels and all different types of kids, those who enjoy school and those who don't enjoy school at all of those levels. And I just knew that I needed to share my knowledge and help other high school chemistry teachers with what I had learned. So I started the challenge and I had to come up with my name. And that's when that day that we had to come up with names from the challenge is when I was like, Heather is my person because I was trying to figure out what my name was going to be. And I messaged and you sent me a voice memo message and you're like, okay, Kendra, here is what I think. I'm brainstorming things, I'm checking them, the domains, and here's what I came up with. And I remember I got that and I walked into the kitchen and told my husband, I said, like, she cares about me and this like little idea that I have to like create this. And she's not a chemistry person, but she is brainstorming and taking the time to help me with this. And so that like just melted my heart. So I was really excited and thank you again for that. And so I came
I'll
up with,
jump in and say for that, I remember that. And I couldn't think of Kindra's name on the spot. So she was in the VIP of the challenge. We were trying to brainstorm names. I couldn't come up with something good when it was like her turn to ask that question. And everything I think I came up with was already taken. So it's not even worth saying out loud. So I kept thinking about it afterwards. And I was like, I got to be able to think of something better than that. And that's funny. And then I tracked you down and sent you a Facebook message, which I will say is not what I do for everyone. Like I don't always do that, but it happened to be that I couldn't stop thinking about that. And I had to share some ideas with you. So that's funny. That's funny that that stood out from your side of things too. Um, yeah, I don't know. I love that. I love that. And I am like, thank you for saying that because I think as a business teacher, I care so deeply about like actually helping people in a way that I think is a little bit unusual. So thank you for saying.
yeah. So yeah, so then we came up with ChemEd Solutions, which is a little play on words because we make a lot of solutions, like, mixture, solvent, solutes in chemistry. But it's also helping fix problems and just challenges that we have. So ChemEd Solutions was born, and I started by creating a free resource for chemistry teachers. I mapped out my best path for high school chemistry content with a course outline and pacing guide, and then a checklist of what to include in each unit, and then where that there are those different items really align with NGSS. From there, I took all of my best explanations and teaching practices for every topic I've taught, and then I published them into a full year's worth of high school chemistry notes with both student and teacher copies. To really go above that, I made short instructional videos to help explain the best way to teach the abstract and the hard content for each unit. And then I put that out there and said, here's what I have for you. So you can click and print. You have your notes, and here is how to teach the hard things. So hopefully help those teachers who either get thrown into it or just started, or veteran teachers who just know that there has to be a different way to do this, but they don't have that chemistry teacher down the hall to bounce ideas off of. And so I wanted to be that person. And then from there to really give a full product for them to be able to really click and print, I created practice pages for every notes topic with fully worked answer keys because there's nothing more frustrating than not getting the same answer of just the number given to you in an answer key and like, well, how did they do it? Did I make a mistake? Did they make a mistake? So I made fully worked answer keys and mixed practice pages and study guides for every unit. So that way a teacher can get both of them, and now they have something for their students every day that has been tested through all of the ranks of different students and works and really helps kids gain confidence. So my tagline is that I give high school chemistry teachers the freedom to stop taking work home by providing them with the highest quality content, tools, and instructional resources, click and print style, to create confidence and success in all of their students. So I really just want to give back to the teachers because they're doing the hard work.
I love that. And I think your resources sound so helpful. I want to clarify for listeners that Kendra didn't create all of these things at once. She pulled from things that she had already created as a teacher. She adapted some things and she's been working on this for a year now. So while that sounds maybe like an intimidating amount of things to create, she used resources that she already had on hand. And then she's built up this arsenal over the course of a year. Um, and I love the work that you've done. I think you are really helping those teachers with these resources. Um, and I can't wait for you to bring it to even more people. So tell us, as a Teacher Biz Blueprint student, what you would say to someone who's listening and probably considering that decision right now, because the doors to Teacher Biz Blueprint are open. They're open today, and they will be open only for a few days after today. And so listeners are in this position where they need to make this decision. What is your advice as a student?
Well, first off, it's one of the best decisions that I have made in a while, and definitely the best career-wise that I have made. Um, and if you think of your favorite coworker as somebody that you could go to and just say, like, I have this crazy idea, what do you think? And they're not going to say, well, that's crazy. They're going to say, let's sit down and talk about it. that is who Heather is. I say it's like having a big sister who opens up her closet for you and says, "What should we style you with today?" And then she helps you every step of the way. And I know that for us, it was definitely a commitment, especially financially, because I had just left my job. And so we went from a two-income household to a one-income household. And we were, what's next? And we had to sit down and we had to look at, like, what things have to get moved around. But for us, it was okay, what could life look like a year from now? What could life look like 5 years from now? And for our family, the freedom opportunity that it posed for us by having me create a business and be able to be the stay at home while also bringing in some income and alleviating the pressure off my husband to have to do it all, and was the right move for our family. And for us, that point in time, it was we're either going to sink or swim, and we decided to go for it. And I think, like you had just mentioned before, everything is laid out stepwise. I have a giant binder of all of my resources and materials that are tabbed and notes written on, and the way that the material is presented makes it small chunks that are doable. And the other thing that's been super helpful when I went through the course was the implementation weeks. And so there's time carved out to do the work. And while I was doing the course, I did have full-time daycare, but let's move and get closer to family. But I lost full-time daycare and I became a full-time stay-at-home mom. And so everything after the course, where you really had to like dig in and do the work, and it was like time for me to either sink or swim by myself. Like I went down to only having part of one full day a week that I had childcare, and then I was squeezing in time where I was working in the margins of my day. And I've still been able to make progress going back through and going step by step by step. And I think I've even had the coaching calls with you where I've said, okay, I don't know where to go next and what do we do? And you're always like, okay, let's go back. Where are we in the progression? And let's go back there. And it hasn't failed me yet. And I don't think it will, because it's there and it makes sense and it's in small chunks, and you do a really great job of helping to see what's next, what have we done, and where do we go?
Thank you for sharing that experience. I appreciate that. And that was intentional to lay it out that way, because I think as teachers, we like the step by step of things. We want to do one thing and then the next thing. And I think we're more likely to be successful that way too. What was your experience like with the community? Did you take advantage of those accountability groups that we have? Did you come to any of the tech calls? I know we added in tech calls a little bit after you started with us, but have you done any of those things? And what's your experience like with that?
Yes, I really depended on them, especially one for accountability. They were really great to develop a community of accountability. So the accountability calls really became a group of friends that like cheered each other on and gave ideas and advice, or just shared like, yeah, I'm stuck there too, and like let's problem solve together. And in fact, some of them I still am in contact with. One of them, celebrating life events that, she's getting to do. And so that's been really cool to just develop some business friends and other people that are going through that same stage. So accountability calls first were a little awkward because we were all new and we're like, oh, what do we talk about? But then by the end of the 12 weeks, we're like asking each other questions. And so that was really great. The coaching calls were, I mean, priceless. I couldn't put a price tag on them, because we could ask any question about any spot that we were at, and the advice that we were given was just so specific to where we were and really helped us. And so of everything, the coaching calls were the most meaningful, because I got to pick your brain and other people's questions if they were at different stages, even if it wasn't right where I was really helpful. And I have just pages of notes from coaching calls of, oh, that was a great idea, or somebody asked something about that and that's going to apply to me down the road. So those are really helpful. And then the tech calls I've utilized actually for Facebook ads. I spent when I was in a particularly frustrating time with them, and I picked Maria's brain about those, and we walked through them, and I think we actually talked in a coaching call too. We walked through Facebook ads too, but yeah, the support given, and then in that Facebook group that we had too, just getting to like share ideas and bounce ideas off of people and the excitement around it really was great because even if you get frustrated, you get that momentum again with other people. So the community that came with that was really helpful.
To clarify for people listening, if they're not familiar with Teacher Biz Blueprint, it does come with our curriculum, but in addition to that, there are weekly coaching calls with me, weekly accountability groups with my team member. Alexis facilitates the conversation there with two times to choose from. So if you're an evening person, that's available too. And then we have weekly tech calls with our team member, Maria, who is also a Teacher Biz Blueprint former student. She's on the Teacher Biz podcast, episode 73, if you'd like to hear more from Maria. But we realized that people were getting stuck with the tech sometimes. So it was good to bring her on and help people push through there. And as Kendra mentioned, there's also a Facebook group in between there. So lots of support that comes with the program. You mentioned Kindra Facebook ads, so let's talk about that. I think this is an inspiring and special part of your story because I think sometimes, and I've seen this in many students, sometimes people try Facebook ads and they don't go perfect out of the gate. I think that will be the experience for most people. Ads, as I teach you in the course, if you choose to use ads, which you don't have to, but if you choose to, they take some testing and tweaking. It's you've got to learn what audience to choose and what ads work and what works for your people and how to run them well. And so there is this kind of learning curve to Facebook ads. And I think a lot of people throw in the towel as soon as it starts to feel hard because you're spending money on them. And if they're not working, that's a scary thing. However, if you can push through the part where they're really tricky, sometimes that can be a great thing and you can end up in a good place. So tell us about your experience. What was your initial experience with Facebook ads?
Overwhelming, confusing, infuriating. It was, I remember being on a coaching call or a tech, it was either coaching or an accountability call. And one of my peers was starting into Facebook ads and she was having trouble. And I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so daunting. But like, I can do this, right? And then I got into Facebook ads and I was like, I don't know what any of this means. There's so many buttons and like, I just, it's the whole nother language and a whole nother world. And so I took your advice and that you had talked about and listened to in one of your earlier podcasts, the Beth Ann Schwamberger and her Brilliant Ads Boot Camp. So for those
Yep,
listening,
Beth
she's got
Ann is
that.
actually on episode 18 of the Teacher Biz podcast. If people want to listen to that one, and teacherbiz.com/ads is how to get to her free ads bootcamp.
And I spent an afternoon and I watched her boot camp and I gave myself a deadline because, like I said, I'm that perfectionist and I needed that in perfect action. And so I said, okay, I'm going to create an ad, I'm going to follow it, and we're going to throw $20 a day at it. So that was August 2024. So I started with one image and one copy, $20 a day. I made one sale. And I was super excited that I made a sale. Like, oh my gosh, somebody wants my stuff, right? Like this is, and then the next day I made another sale. I was like, okay, I've I've got this figured out. And then the ads just stopped selling and I let them run for 7 days because I was like, oh, maybe that just needs like they just need time. And no, they didn't work. And I didn't see results, so I just turned them off and I was super frustrated and I needed a break from ads and I moved in a different direction and said, okay, I cannot control ads right now, but what is something I can control in my business? So I said, well, if I'm going to get people to onto my email list. That's what the ads are for. And I need something for them to have when they get on my email list. So I created a plan for my weekly emails to nurture my new subscribers and thought, well, even if they don't buy from me from ads, then I'm going to nurture them and love on them and show them I have great things for them and I'm going to support them regardless. And maybe they will buy from me later if they don't do it right now. So I created a 12 weeks, because that's one per unit, of teacher toolkit teaching tips for all the units in my chemistry curriculum. And then I made YouTube videos because I used to have a flipped classroom. So YouTube was not scary to me at all. Some people, it's like, do not put me on YouTube. But for me, it was whatever. So I used to have a flipped classroom and I made YouTube videos all the time. So I said, okay, I'm going to do that because it's something I'm comfortable with. And I explained the best way to teach a specific piece of content to students. And I wrote up all my emails and included a video with PDF copies of teacher and student copies of whatever teaching tip and practice problems I was going through. I set them up to go out on Tuesdays at lunchtime because a lunch email is not a bad thing. And then I had a win for myself and my business because I had made something to give to my subscribers in my community. And I said, okay, I have this. I've done another thing for myself. Let's go back and get into Facebook ads. So initially, not great, but I gave myself a small win and then said, okay, let me try it again.
That was so smart of you. I love that. I think I think we could just be discouraged with the things that are not working. Or if something's not working, sometimes we just try to push it harder because we've already put effort into this. So like let's just like grind until, something might happen there. That was smart to take a step back and do something where you could have a positive experience in your business and help someone and remember why you're doing this. I love that. That was just really smart. Did everyone hear what Kendra said there? I cannot control ads right now. What is something I can control? I think that's really smart thinking.
Thanks. At the time I was, just trying to survive and and get through. And so after I went and back to tackle Facebook ads because I said, okay, I've made my win. And I dove into Facebook's information pages and installed a pixel. And when you get to the pixel point, just know that it's confusing and hard. Maria is helpful. So if when you get to
Yes,
that
take
point,
advantage of those tech calls if you can for that part. My goodness.
yeah, there's just so much. And I said, okay, how can I make this more specific and really hone in on what's my niche? And I said, okay, I want chemistry teachers and specifically chemistry teachers. So I tweaked my audience with something because, again, like what can I control with this? So I changed my audience. And then I also said, well, my people are on Facebook in the afternoons and evenings because as teachers, we don't have time to scroll. And in your planning period, you're running to the copier in the bathroom and scarfing down your lunch. And so I said, I'm going to target the time of day that I focus my ads, and I had them run in the evenings. I honed in on my community. And in October, so after a 2-month hiatus, I turned my ads back on with my more specific audience and targeted times. And I shared my business out to my friends on Facebook and Instagram. So I got vulnerable and I put myself out there and said, this is what I've been doing since I left the brick and mortar. And I shared my ad because when my ad came up on my list or my feed, I shared it to them and said, click on this, it'll help me. And it just gave my ad a little bit of traction. I don't know if it really helped, but it helped my morale because people were looking at it. And then I got some sales because people who were fellow teachers that I knew bought my stuff and I made some other sales. So I gained a little bit more traction and I was getting about 1 to 2 sales a day with about a $20 to $40 budget. And I was selling my small scale offer, which was just at that time my chemistry notes, the teacher and student copies. So I was keeping my really small offer. And I felt good about my ads, but
What was
I thought
what was the price point of your offer? Can you share that?
it was $27. So I was thinking, if I make with a $40 a day budget, if I make 2 sales, I've covered myself and I've made a tiny bit of money. Um, and so that was my goal, was just if I could break even each day, I was winning the Facebook ad game. But then I started to think, okay, well, what's next? How do I get a little more ROI? But I'm not quite ready to get my signature big offer off the ground because I my big offer is going to be and is in the works as a membership. And so I knew I had to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark, which was my goal. But what do I do in the meantime to really, propel my business forward? So after a really great coaching call with you, we talked about order bumps and, what's that next thing that is a lower hanging fruit that I can really help my community with. And that led me to create my practice pages. So I paused Facebook ads again because I said, okay, I need to focus again on what I can control. I'm making progress with ads, but I didn't want them just out there and kind of making money, kind of not, because that was stressful to me to like have that going. So I paused them again and I dove in to creating, and not really creating from scratch, but formalizing the practice pages that I would give to my students. So I made them all look nice because as a teacher, I didn't care what they looked like and just threw them out there. So I made them look nice. And then I made those full answer keys, study guides, and mixed practice pages and worked on it. And it took me about 2 months because I was working in the margins of my day and I only had childcare when my parents could come up and watch my daughter for portions of the day. I would get up early when I could, when she'd have a good night's sleep and I got a good night's sleep. And so it wasn't perfect, but I made progress. So January is when I finally got my practice pages done and I added the order bump to my sales funnel. So I learned about sales funnels in there and order bumps, set that up. So now when people find me and they get my freebie there, which is my pacing guide and outline, then they see my notes and they also see that I also have the practice pages with answer keys. And it gives them a lot of support all at once. And then I found that people were more apt to say, yes, I'm going to dive in and get notes and practice pages, which led to a little bit of a higher offer, which I added practice pages for $37. So together it was 64, which is doable for a teacher because we don't make much money. But if it relieves that stress, that's definitely helpful. So January, I restarted my ads and I also changed my conversion event to be purchase as opposed to leads. And that also helped because people who are more likely to buy things were the ones that were seeing my ad more often. So since turning on ads in January with my order bump, I've really been live at the time of recording for really a solid month. And I've made 77 sales, which is like amazing. So I'm actually making money for the first
Amazing.
time.
That is
Yeah.
amazing.
So more than one sale a day on average, a lot of times, probably 50% of the time, people are adding my order bump on. And my subscribers have gone from 200 to 700 subscribers.
Woo.
Yeah, so exciting. And my subscribers, I'm nurturing them and they're going back and purchasing something that they didn't buy previously, which to me is the biggest win because they are seeing that like I care and I value them and I want their life to be better. And then they're trusting me to like give them and provide for them. So that's been just the most awesome part of it, is getting to make that impact and seeing people say, yes, I'm ready to jump on. So it's been an up and down roller coaster, and I've given myself permission to turn them off when I need to and turn them back on. And I think the other thing that's been really helpful in terms of Facebook ads is, like I said earlier, my husband has been like on my team. And so he'll say, okay, how are your ads doing? And he'll also be, blatantly obvious when he wants to be, hey, Kindra, they're not working right now. Let's pause them, right? And not to help me not be afraid to say, yeah, it's not working. Let's pause it and stop trying to, really dive into it, like take a step back. And that's been really helpful too.
I love that. I think your ads are doing really great right now. Those numbers are amazing. Before I even go to the next thing I was going to say, 50% order bump conversion, great. That's so good. Um, 77 sales over how long?
A month.
A month.
A month.
And if 50% of those people are taking her $37 order bump, I mean, that just sounds incredible to me. I love those numbers. And Kindra is building her email list in the process because even if someone doesn't buy from her, they may have signed up for her free resource. Now they're on her list and she can follow up with them. I know you said that. I wanted to reiterate that because if people don't really understand how the funnel works, you were mentioning like if I break even, that's okay, which is how I feel about my ads sometimes, my freebie ads. If I can build my list for free, I'll take that. Um, I love all of those numbers. The thing that makes me feel like you will definitely be successful in your business, which I don't say lightly, is that you have this perseverance where if something stops working, you can step back, figure out what it is, and then take the next action instead of doing what people sometimes do, which is get so discouraged that something didn't work that then they can't move forward. So I want people to hear that. I want to congratulate you for that and cheer you on all day. And I want other people to hear that so they can take on that mindset of, okay, something's not working. That doesn't mean that it won't work for me. That doesn't mean that my business is not good. That doesn't mean something wrong with my product that I've created. Maybe I need a different audience. Maybe I need a different conversion event for my ads. Like, it could be a small tweak that makes all the difference for you. And the only way to find that out is to not give up when things are stinky. So please keep taking those next actions. Take the imperfect action that we started this conversation talking about because you will be successful if you just don't stop until you are successful. That is the secret to business right there. We just gave it to you for free. Just don't stop until you find something that works, and it will work eventually if you don't give up. So, thank you for doing that. Like, thank you for continuing until you have this point where like we have this really great month of sales at the end of your, which is this is like so the beginning of your story. The way you're going to build out this funnel and continue on from here is just makes me so excited for you. But thank you for doing that and just giving people this example of they can be successful too if they just don't give up when things get hard.
And I think the other thing, we're all teachers, right? And most people listening here are teachers, and we wouldn't give up on our students, right? We wouldn't say, like, oh, I can't figure out how to make Elizabeth do this, and she's not working on this. And like, we don't say, like, well, she's not going to learn, so we'll move on. Like, we like exhaust our resources and we're always thinking about it. And, you know, as teachers, we need to do that with ourselves too. Like, don't give up on ourselves. And what would we do with the kids? We'd step back, we'd find something else, and we'd try something else. And I think that's important for us to do for ourselves too.
I love that. You're right. That is just so spot on, that example. Kendra, we've given so much great advice in this conversation. What advice would you give to a teacher who is just starting out in their online business?
I think just like I said, like don't give up on yourself and be okay to take, we've talked about imperfect action, but it's something that I've gripped onto because I've been a perfectionist and I mean, I still am. And the other part is create that support structure around you. So tell your close friends and family what you want to do so they can help hold you accountable through their love for you. At the end, right at the end of Teacher Biz Blueprint, we decided to move an hour away. So I think I mentioned a little bit before, but like I lost childcare and I all of a sudden had this giant disruption in my momentum of creating my business. And because my husband was working full time and I wasn't kind of right, I didn't have that typical 9 to 5 job, the whole move fell on my shoulders. And so organizing everything and the inspections and just all of it was on me. And so I basically took off of working on my projects all of June, July, and half of August. So anything to do with ChemEd Solutions, just giant pause button. And I didn't have the bandwidth to do it. And so that's how life was. And I fell out of rhythm and kind of came to about beginning of August and my husband and my family and my friends were like, well, okay, you've got this move going, but how's your business doing? How's it going? What are you doing? And I was like, you're right. I need to start getting back in the groove. And I hadn't been on accountability call in a while or a coaching call. And I was like, okay, I just need to get to the next coaching call and the accountability call. And I did. And that kind of pushed me back of like, yes, I can do this. Here are my next steps. And I went back to my binder of where did I leave off? And having that community of support around me gave me the momentum to say, I can do this. And, what supports do I need now that life looks a little different? So I reached out to my parents and said, can you come one day a week? How can we make this work? And I've changed what life looks like, right? I work one day a week and then the rest of it in the margins. And it's not perfect, but I'm making progress. And so don't think just because your time is limited or you're trying to fit it into different portions of the day that you make progress and accomplish creating your online business. It's doable. It's going to happen on your timeline that makes sense for your life. And, I've been able to make sales in the first year, but, maybe it takes a little longer because life looks a little different, but you can keep making progress on something if it's what you want to do.
Yeah. Kindra was able to do this even without the perfect circumstances around her. She is now able to work one day a week and in the margins. That is incredible. Um, I feel like we have so much in common. I had, when I had my second daughter, Gracie, my second child, she's my only daughter. But when I had Gracie, I totally like took my foot off the gas, stopped working on my business completely. And the only thing I did was stay in touch with my business friends, who mostly we were talking about like baby things, because one of my friend Maury was also having a baby. And but by staying in touch with them was like the thing that connected me to my business. And my friend Erin was running ads really successfully at the time. And it just like put in the back of my mind, like whenever I get back into this, I'm gonna start with Facebook ads, which is when I first started running ads and what happened from there. But I think the beauty in having an online business is that we can take our foot off the gas and focus on our real life when we need to do that. We have this flexibility. And I think it's very wise to stay in a community of people who are working on their business when you do that, whenever you do need to take a break, because it's what brings you back in when you're ready for it. So I love that happened for you too. And that you've made the smart decision to be in a community of other people who are working on their businesses as well. I think that's kind of priceless.
Yeah, it's been really helpful. And just and taking, small steps for myself, like what podcast I listen to. I listen to marketing podcasts or Facebook ad podcasts and your podcast. And, how can I immerse that business culture around me when, I'm not going to an office and I don't have, people next to me working on the same things, but I can still find that community and push me to keep moving forward without that, classical look.
I completely agree. Kendra, what are you working on right now? What are you excited about?
So two kind of big things are going on. One, continuing to tweak Facebook ad strategy. My next step there is how do I test different audiences with slightly different ad copy, so the text and then the different images. I've really had the same image and copy since the start, and so I want to see, can I make different things work better than others? I feel like I'm finally at a spot where I understand Facebook ads enough to do that, but there's always something new to learn there. And then business wise, I am going to start a membership and really get into what I'm really excited about, which is coaching high school chemistry teachers through their teaching journey. I really want them to be able to stop having to take work home and leave school at school and no more late days all the time and get to work with them one-on-one. That brings me so much life of getting to talk to them and strategize with them. And that is the next big thing. So people who have purchased the notes and the practice pages and my email list community are going to get an opportunity to join me in a group coaching aspect so we can create this room of chemistry teachers who have similar struggles and similar nerdy excitement around chemistry, and put our brains together and work together. And then hopefully, help them reach all of their students and engage them in those skills that are actually meaningful to our kids. Our students, they're not all going into chemistry, but there are so many skills that are really important for them to learn in chemistry that they need to be taught. And, sometimes because we love chemistry, we get stuck on, well, the content's what matters, but really it's the skills. And so how can I help teachers shift to the skills? Because then that really opens up so much joy in their students' life when they see like, oh, I can graph and I can interpret data and like nerdy science things, but they're real life skills that are helpful to them. And then that gets more kids excited about science and chemistry and just makes for a better learning experience. So the membership is coming. For sure, it'll be launched before the end of or before the beginning of next school year. Hopefully sooner is the plan, and just getting to have that there for them. And then other things like, creating assessments for teachers, again, to really alleviate the stress of creating things from scratch. And then my side project with all of this is how do I help teachers with, flipped classroom? That was something that saved me so much time and energy. And then my skills-based grading that I got to implement when I worked as a teacher. So how do I help shift that? But those are those mindset things that I'll get to integrate in with a membership and really get to dive into the nitty-gritty of instruction with high school chemistry teachers.
I'm so excited to see where your business goes from here. I'm so glad that I get to see that because Kindra is in my Teacher Biz membership, and I'm just really excited to follow your journey. I'm so proud of the work that you've done. Tell us where people can find you online. I'm sure we have someone who might be interested or is a chemistry teacher listening. So tell us where we can find you.
Absolutely. So anybody can get my free high school chemistry curriculum resource, and that is at www.chemedsolutions.com/chem guide.
Which is
And
linked for you down in the show notes too.
and so check that out. That just gives you that roadmap to really help you see like where should you be, where could you be, and then about how to spend time on each thing. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram, both of them at ChemEd Solutions. And I also have email, hello@chemedsolutions.com. So if there's things that you need, want, advice, I'm ready and excited to help. So my social presence isn't as great as I want it to be, but I'm here. And that's something that we're going to give a little more attention to come 2025. But I'm excited.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. I think it's such a real story of what building a business looks like. It's not always easy. It's absolutely worth it if you just keep going. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kendra.
Thanks for having me, Heather.